Three, two, one, go.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Above Board TV.
And this is the Podfather of gaming, Stephen Bonacor. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 302. And we're recording this on January 14th, 2023. Board Games Insider, proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. So, Corey, obviously, our second show officially with Board Game Geek. Did you happen to see any of the comments that people were posting in the front page thread for us? Did you see any of those?
I looked through. There was a lot of really nice comments.
Oh,
People are excited about it.
oh
So
yes, there were a few of those. The trolling was off the chart. I'm
it
like, so
was.
I mean, listen, and if those people listen, which some of them obviously do, because they said one jamoke said, and if you don't know what jamoke means, you can go look it up. One jamoke says, "Oh, just two old rich guys talking about all the travel," and the other guy who like doesn't show up anymore. It's like, it's like, guys,
It's.
we we
I
do
know that.
we do this for free for
Yeah.
you. We promote a little bit about what we're doing. The travel is for the business in the
Now, all the
hobby.
travel that I'm doing is
Yeah,
board game related. I'm pretty much only going places for the media company or for
yeah.
conventions or for news.
And 90% of what I do travel wise is within board gaming. Listen, listen to
Yeah.
us, watch us, don't. It will not change us. And as Marion, our good friend Marion, jumped in there to say things, you don't know what we do behind the scenes to continue helping people in the hobby.
Yeah, I just want to put out there too, there was a little
Mentoring.
bit of comments that I'm not an insider, and I've said for a long time
Oh,
that
it's
I'm not really in the business, but it's time I kind of like came forward and said what I actually do.
well, tell us. Oh, then that's part of
Well,
your
I
your
mean,
thing here. But
the
I
obvious
think you're
thing,
you're a newsman in the industry. But go ahead.
I was the news coordinator for the Dice Tower and still work with the Dice Tower, still very friendly with the Dice Tower. For 7 years, I was working news for the Dice Tower. So I'm up on the news. I'm friendly with all the publishers, designers, and artists, everybody in the industry. I do Above Board TV, which is the media channel out of LA, and we work very closely with publishers. We know what's new in the industry. Um, I'm a board game financier. I've been lending money to board game companies and board game publishers. I've worked with 7 different publishers in a business aspect. I'm part of Play to Z Games with you. That
Yeah,
so technically I'm a
you
publisher.
you are very much a board games insider, as are
Yeah.
everybody here. We
And
call them our
I've
ins.
done board game development and board game design, and I've done, I mean,
Oh,
I've
so
worked in
so
almost every aspect.
we've given the trolls already too much food. Tell us what's happening in your life there regarding all of that stuff that you have touch points on. What's
Oh
going
my
on?
goodness, the past week has been a roller coaster of fun and plague. got home,
You do
I
sound a
got
little.
home from a trip to Toronto to Daryl Andrews' house. Again, business trip, hanging with Daryl Andrews, who's the designer of Sagrada and hundreds of other games.
Yep,
Major publishers, major designers. There were 30, 40 different people at Daryl's house. It was so nice to see all my friends. Stefan from Asmodee, too
that's
many
awesome.
people to mention. Derek Johnson, Jacob Way from Friendly Skeleton, Erica Bouyaris from, oh man, every game in the world.
Yep,
Peter Woken, who was the art
awesome guy.
designer on Sagrada and is now with Pandasaurus. Tanya Thompson from Hasbro, so many people,
Yep.
and it was amazing hanging out with all of them. But unfortunately, I came home from Toronto with more than I went to Toronto with. Um, the weather, the cold, the crowd of people, I came home with a really nasty bug.
I thought you were going
Uh,
to say a social disease, but okay, I got it. Well, you came home with something you
we were
didn't
very
arrive with.
social. I came home with something.
Yeah, you
It's
have a
what Yeah, what
You're,
happens in Toronto stays in
yeah, your
Toronto.
voice is a little raspy. That's why
It
everybody out
is.
there,
No,
we
just
had it,
a
and we had to
respiratory
delay
virus.
we had to
Yeah.
record delay the recording for several days to get Corey a little
I
more
was
healthy.
really out of it. Now it's not coronavirus, it's not COVID. It's I've
Yep.
tested repeated times,
Yep.
but it laid me up for about a week.
Hmm.
I do want to say that in Toronto, I played some absolutely amazing games,
What did you
either
play?
that are on limited release or haven't been released yet. The ones that I really want to point out is Surfasaurus Max. This
Great.
is a ridiculously good game that I would not have ever looked twice at. The title does not draw me in. The art is garish 80s neon
It's
colored
absolutely goofy
goofy
art. I know it.
art, and it doesn't reflect what the game is. The game is a puzzly semi-cooperative trick taker. It is absolutely an amazing game. Everybody plays together into a central area. Then the cards that have all been played from all the players are analyzed, and the best 5 card hand is decided. Everyone who contributed to that best hand then gets points. That's it. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, and
And it's so
it is a fun
ridiculously
game.
fun.
It is a fun game. It was a contender for my top 10 of 2023. And
Man,
everything you said about it, the artwork is pretty hideous. Which I don't care about, but I'm just to point it out. It doesn't the name is weird,
it's
but
very weird.
it's a
Yeah.
real it's a very different take on trick
It's
taking, and that's what you kind of want. You want different
Yeah,
takes.
by designer Equan Khan and Loosey Goosey Games, right now only released in Germany. I have no doubt this will come to the
Yeah.
US through
I,
some publisher. The
yeah.
deal is probably already done, and if I knew about it, I wouldn't talk about
I
it.
I played this at PAX, and yeah, it's quite interesting.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
What else you
And
got?
then the other one that really threw me was the card game Far Away by Johannes Guppy and Corentin Lebrat and Catch Up Games. This
Okay.
is in limited release. A lot of people have it. A little difficult to find. It is a card game in which the cards either provide resources or icons or score based on those. So you might have a wolf head and then another card that says, hey, you get 2 points per wolf head. The real trick of this game is you are playing the cards out from left to right during the game. But then at the end of the game, they score strictly backwards from right to left.
Interesting.
So at the end, you've played a line of 8 cards. You flip them all over. Then look at the very last one you've played and treat it as if it's the only card there. If it says you score 2 points per wolf head, guess what? None of the other cards are there yet because you're scoring them backwards. So you will have no points. So you want to play your cards so that your big scoring points get played first, and then your icons that'll contribute to those get played last, which is a very difficult puzzle to wrap your head around.
Very cool.
So I really enjoyed that.
And that what's called again? What is it? Lucy
Far Away.
Far Away by Johannes Guppy. Interesting.
These are big time designers. Johannes Guppy and Corentin Lebrat have done a ton of games. They're really some of my favorites. And this card game from
Cool.
Catch Up Games, Far Away, is really amazing.
Very
And
cool.
then basically I the rest of my week, the rest of my month is catching up for the week that I was sick. I was supposed to be in LA filming last week, and now I got to go there now.
Get down there. Get down there.
So,
All right. Over here at the Podfather of Gaming, this week, and this is like something I don't very often do at all, but this week I was at 2 South Florida game events, like
mm,
local game events, one on the west coast of South Florida, one on the east coast, which is my coast. The Gamers of the Gulf Coast, which is in Fort Myers, Florida, on the West Coast. 120 people were there. I mean, it was big. It was held in a
wow.
church auditorium thing. And It's in Fort Myers, Florida, which is, by the way, where my escape room is. If anybody is in the South Florida area, Joey Evans, who's a member of the Dice Tower as well, a magician. He's just a cool, fun guy, and he runs this thing. He does it every 2 to 3 months. So you can go to Facebook and go and sign up for the Facebook group called Gamers of the Gulf Coast and get an invitation to play every 2 to 3 months. They'll send an announcement out that they're doing it again. Highly recommend. It was a lot of fun. Even Tom Vassell showed up. So people came from pretty far away. It was 2 hours for me to drive there, but I enjoyed the drive sometimes. So that was great. Then,
That's very cool.
yeah, then on Thursday, I went to Coastal Karma Brewing Company, which is owned by my good friends Rod and Carrie Phelps. You know them as well.
How cool.
They're part owners, and they now have a game group that shows up every Thursday night. It's called the Jupiter and North Palm Beach Board Game Society. About 12 people showed up, so quite a bit smaller. They usually get around the 10 to 15, 20 people in, I was told. So this is going to go every Thursday night. I'm not going to be able to make it for the next 2 nights because of trips I'm about to take, but I'll be going back there. And if you're in South Florida and you're in the Northern Palm Beach area, you should check that out. It's at Coastal Karma Brewing. And the name of the group, the Jupiter and North Palm Beach Board Game Society. Check it out. Upcoming trips. I'm going to be going to New Orleans for gaming for an entire week, seeing friends there. And then I'm going to fly directly from there to Tantrum Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they have made me a guest of honor. Thank you. I was actually really coerced by a whole bunch of friends and industry people to show up. And then I said, well, okay, well, if I was guest of honor, I'd do it. And then they made me guest of honor. So I'm like, okay, now I got to go, I guess.
They know how
It,
to get you.
yeah, stroke the ego a little bit. It's going to be great. And Zev is going. So we'll be testing some of the
Oh,
Play
that's
Disney
fantastic. I wish
games.
I was there.
I'm playing in like 3 VIP games, like one every morning for Thunder Road Vendetta. They asked me what I want to play. I'm like, you got a copy of Thunder Road Vendetta? I'll play Maximum Chrome with people. They got one. I'm doing a Shark
That's
Tank
awesome.
proto tank, like where you sit up there and you judge the games, like a Shark Tank style. I always play Mr. Wonderful on those things and have a little bit of fun mocking and of course giving good advice as well. And like they're doing a flip the table competition where literally they're going to have like 2 VIPs, guests, of honor of the show, who are going to see who can more dramatically flip a table. I literally had to sign a waiver saying like, if you get injured via this, it's not our fault. So, but I can't
Watch
wait.
those legs. They flip back on you.
just be careful. They put a copy of Monopoly on the table and then want to see how dramatically it can be flipped. I think that's pretty funny. I'm going against Kurt Covert from Smirk and Dagger Games.
How cool.
Yeah, gonna be fun. Gonna be fun. Last thing is I'm giving a shout out to Fricks Games, who are the board game, the design team for Terraforming Mars. They just launched. I mean, they would have by the time you hear this, it would have just launched a non-Terraforming Mars game on Kickstarter. And it's called Fate Defenders of Grimheim. Fate is a cooperative game. 1 to 4 players take on the roles of talented but inexperienced heroes, and together they defend Freya's well against trolls, undead, fire hordes, monsters approaching from all sides. The cool thing about this is that it's a castle defense game, as that explanation goes, but you have character leveling in the game and you have questing, so it's a little bit of a campaign as well because you're getting your characters bigger and bigger to go against bigger and bigger monsters. So check that out. Fate Defenders of Grimheim by Fricks Games is on Kickstarter now for the next 2 weeks or so. And with that, let's get over to the event deck. All right, Corey, the first thing here is that we have more information, which was shared via Stonemeyer Games with regard to Wormspan. And they gave the details such as the online response to the announcement of Wormspan was apparently overwhelming enough that Jamie Stegmaier was inspired to clarify a few points about the upcoming board game in a recent blog post. The first point Stegmeyer was clear to make was that Wormspan was not a reskin, excuse me, of Wingspan.
Yeah.
It is its own standalone game designed by Connie Vogelman, who's the creator of Apiary. Elizabeth
Yep.
Hargrave, who is the designer, of course, of Wingspan, is a developer on the game. So it has elements of Wingspan, but it
I
is
think this
not a
was a
reskin.
really smart way for Jamie to deal with it. They knew because we've all knew, you and I have known about this
Yeah.
game coming for quite a while,
Yep.
and it had to be treated right.
Yep.
Everybody who's a huge fan of Wingspan would immediately look at it and try to make the comparisons and the guesses. And is it the same game? Is it a variant? Is it just different art? So they had to be ready for all those questions. And I think
Yep.
the way Jamie's dealing with it is fantastic. Jamie's always been very, very open about almost everything. His strategy's always been develop it in secret, don't tell anything, don't release any title, don't release anything. But when you do announce it, have it ready quickly and be very transparent.
Yeah, and that's like their main model of everything is transparency. They always give you
Yeah.
details. Interestingly enough, they gave the details on this one that the development and manufacturing of the game will be complete and it will be ready to ship by the end of this month,
Yeah.
January 2024, and it will head to their web store customers throughout February, and the game will be arriving in retail in late March. And also, the first print run in English of Wormspan is 100,000 units.
That's
Now,
a pretty normal print run for a first game, right,
oh
Steve?
yeah, no, yeah, all games in the hobby print 100,000 copies at a no, everybody. That is
No,
somewhere
this is a ridiculously high print run.
right. That is somewhere depending on who's doing it. But like say the average publisher out there these days, that's around 50 to 100 times the average print run these days for a media
Yes.
small publisher. So print runs have been getting smaller and smaller due to the amount of competition. 1,000 units, 2,000, 5,000, pretty big print run. You better be sure you're going to be able to sell those games. 100,000 units. Good luck, Stonemaier Games and Jamie and all of my friends there. Alex Schmidt, oh, great people. I bet this
The
is going
art
to
is
be.
gorgeous. The fan base is already built. The fans trust Stonemaier. I think
Yep.
this is going to do really well.
I think it's going to have
And Connie's a
multiple.
fantastic designer.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's going to have multiple 100,000 print runs, or at least in aggregate over time, it'll be selling well over that 100,000 units. So here on the bad news side, we have Wizards of the Coast slashing 1,100 jobs in 2023 as Hasbro's CEO took home $9 million. Of course, they have to. The article has to bang on both sides. It's a long-standing staple of fantasy games that a dragon sits on a mountain of gold, obsessed with more and more glittering metal. This is coming out of readwrite.com. Little did those working at fantasy gaming giant Wizards of the Coast know that their very own version of Smog was sitting on a pile of treasure they all helped to grow. Basically, they're assailing a little bit here. The $9.4 million in compensation that Cox is the gentleman's name. What's his first name? Chris Cox. We reported on him. He took over actually sometime, I believe, during 23 as the CEO of all of Hasbro. And by the way, he came from the hobby side, which was a good thing. We reported back in the day. But they have over the course of 2023 laid off 1,100 people. So in general, this is, news that we've kind of been reporting that they have been doing these things. Apparently, the number is going to or has gotten closer to 2,000 people that have been cut or will be cut in total.
Yeah.
Until this is all done. So big numbers of cuts.
Big reorganization happening.
A big reorganization happening at Wizards of the Coast. Another interesting Wizards of the Coast article is that they expanded their AI artwork policy for Magic the Gathering. They announced that the company is expanding its policy for Magic the Gathering to include creative assets from third-party vendors. In the announcement, WotC was quick to reaffirm that they require creatives that contribute to Magic the Gathering to refrain from using AI generative tools when rendering final images. WotC had previously stated these guidelines for use of AI with Magic as well as D&D. Now they have added that they will also work with vendors to address the use of AI beyond the actual Magic products, which include social media and other marketing creative assets created by third parties. So basically, they're not only now including this policy for the stuff that's actually in the game, but for anything being generated to promote the game. Interesting development.
Yeah, I think they're doing a little bit of damage control here. There's been a lot of back and forth about AI use, especially in Magic the Gathering. There was a recent fight, I think we touched on really quickly. This was actually January 8th. We might have not have talked about this, but there was an image put up of new cards from Magic, and the community said, this is AI. You said you'd never use AI. And the company actually argued back that it was not AI. And they went back and forth really strongly arguing whether or not it's AI. And at the end, the community had pointed out, here is something that's obviously AI. Here's something, and microanalyzed this piece of art that was public. It's kind of like putting up a picture of a naked woman right out of Hustler and saying this is not porn, and then everybody arguing back and forth. So in the end, Wizards of the Coast did admit they used AI in the production of this image that was a public image after arguing about it for a very long time. So this article that we're talking about right now is damage control. They're talking about what they intend to do. There is more difficulty with that previous story. And I do want to say that with the previous story, this was in Polygon. There's a lot of people involved when a piece of art goes up. It is under a lot of production steps. And what they're claiming is early on in the background, someone without their knowledge used AI.
There you go.
Just the fact that they doubled down on it and really were aggressive about whether or not it was AI caused more damage than it would have been just to simply admit it from the beginning. But right now, WotC is saying what their exact policy is, every step along the chain from early conception through sketches, through design, and what they accept and what they don't. They're trying to deal with the public backlash from the previous story.
Is that image from Hustler really porn? No, don't answer that. We're going to move right on here to Lucky Duck is making some big news. Lucky Duck, friends of the show, friends of ours personally, Lucky Duck making big moves. Lucky Duck has signed 2 new companies into their catalog of distribution and localization. First of all, they signed Paverson.
A lot of people don't realize that Lucky Duck actually has an enormous business in localization and distribution. So we know Lucky Duck here in the US as the company that makes Chronicles of Crime and these popular games. But here and in Europe, they do an enormous business of distributing and localizing games from other people. Sorry to interrupt.
They are a much bigger company than people realize. And the latest 2 companies that they've now signed contracts with are Paverson Games, who are the makers of Distilled, an excellent Euro game that
Jeff Beck's Distilled is such a good title, and his new one, Luthier, is really looking nice.
And I did put it into my top 10, and that they have them now for an international distribution deal. So they'll be taking their games and distributing them out in the channels where Lucky Duck distributes their games and others. And then they also signed a contract with Steamforged Games to localize their games in other languages. So
this one's a huge one. Steve Moore puts out a lot of titles, and they make some of the most beautiful miniatures games I've seen. Some of the games kind of, they aren't my favorite played games, but they have some real winners in there. They've got the Gears of War game. They've just signed Medici, which is going to be fantastic. But the Horizon Zero Dawn game, the Dead Souls games, they all look really good.
Very, very cool. Hey, so I got an email. Is Asmodee doing crowdfunding on Kickstarter? Well, not exactly, boys and girls, but the email, which Asmodee, I sign up for their newsletter just to, one of the ways of keeping apprised of the games that are coming out and what the big guys are doing. They sent out an email that was promoting a Kickstarter for Equinox Studio and their new TCG called Altered. Um, which was at first I was like, oh my God, they're doing a Kickstarter. But no, Equinox Studios is doing a Kickstarter and Asmodee is promoting them because Asmodee is going to be doing like all the distribution on this new and apparently very innovative TCG.
Yeah,
They had and there was a big press release on it as well. I went over to their corporate website to check that out. And not about the Kickstarter. There was a big press release back from November that talked about the partnership for global distribution of
right.
this very innovative trading card game, Altered. So I don't know
And
much more about it
they're
other than
also,
that.
well, they're bringing in their Gamegenic division as well. Gamegenic is kind of a high-end accessories for TCGs, so things like nice sleeves and boxes and storage, and I they're really beautiful little magnetic seal boxes and things like that. So the article talks about Gamegenic being involved in their partnerships, and Gamegenic is directly an Asmodee subsidiary.
Very cool. Now, this one is in the realm of idiotic things that
So many
occur.
levels of idiotic.
It's so many levels of idiotic. We talk about AI and artwork. A lot of that has got like a lot of negative connotations to it. We talk about AI. I talk to this fake woman here with that name that starts with an A. If I say her name, she'll start talking back to me. And we use AI all the time in our lives, right? All the time we're using AI. Well,
Yeah.
it
Hey,
doesn't always work.
Alexa.
Yeah, thank you. Well, your mine didn't go off just now because all of it's in my head, but yours might go off if you keep doing it. Anyway,
I don't have any.
you don't have any. You're probably smarter than me. Um, she controls all the lights in my house, so the answer is I do have plenty of her around. Anyway, so Facebook's AI and YouTube's AI completely dropped the ball. I called BS. Everybody who heard about this calls BS and just WTF. How is this possible? First one, which is, I mean, both of these are egregious. On Facebook, a game was being advertised, right? They take plenty of money for advertising, games and everything else
Yeah.
that they advertise. But Fort Circle Games was promoting their game Votes for Women. It's a
Fantastic game.
critically acclaimed card game, like a card-driven war game about women's suffrage movement in the
Yep.
US in the early part of the 20th century. And I mean, it has nothing to do with like influencing votes or anything like that. Of course, this is a game that's a historical. They shut all of their
The social
advertising
media
down.
AI pegged it as being too controversial.
Unbelievable how dumb. Fort Circle has already taken in quite a bit of money on their campaign, but they now say they stand to lose like $60,000 of backers. I mean, I don't know how they came up. Facebook actually called it a sensitive social issue. The AI does it. Human beings aren't even looking at this stuff. Really,
Yeah.
really dumb. I don't even think that they were able to turn it around. I don't have the final on this, but I
I,
think they're not allowed to advertise due to the
no,
Facebook
it's
AI
still
being
ongoing.
dumb.
But I love the
Unbelievable.
responses from Fort Circle. Fort Circle is basically posting that these social media companies feel that women's suffrage is a social issue, that is a sensitive issue and should not exist.
I can't even. I can't even. I don't know what that means. That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so there you go. Facebook AI you're a bunch of idiots. Well, your AI is a bunch of idiots, and well, you are for implementing it so badly. Then number two, YouTube. Grant Lyon, noted board gamer and comedian. He does comedy shows for board gamers at conventions all over, Gen Con, Origins.
One of the sweetest guys ever. He's actually been a professional stand-up comedian for a
Yeah,
very long time.
yeah.
Knows everybody in the circles. Super sweet dude.
I'm going to see him at Tantrum Con. He's doing 2 comedy shows there. He's an amazing guy. YouTube, with zero explanation, deleted his YouTube channel. They just said it's inappropriate content. All he does is post videos about board games and does comedy. They gave him
And he does it clean. He is not,
clean
I mean, there's no reason I can think of why they would delete him.
because the AI is dumb. I mean, it's really, really bad in this regard. So it was
But there's a good ending to this story, right?
it is the good ending is that literally he reached out to as many people as he could in his network, and apparently a human being does look at the, I believe it's the Twitter, the X account for YouTube itself, and they said we will look into this. Somebody said that, and apparently he's got his channel back and the world is okay. It took about 2 weeks of people
But
complaining
there was
about it.
just an enormous response from the industry, from the community. It really was heartwarming because Grant is loved. He is such an amazing guy, such a friendly guy. The response was just immediate and huge.
Just a good dude, period. Full stop. Love the guy. Grant, I don't know if you're a listener, but I will see you soon. Good man. You're going to take us away on this one because you got it and it's really interesting.
I just got a kick out of this. So there's a new Dungeons and Dragons book out there coming to retail soon. It might not exactly be in the section of the bookstore that you're looking for. It is a little golden book. I don't know if you're the right age for this or if you remember this, if you know the Pokey Little Puppy, but Penguin Random House has a series of books for small children called the Little Golden Books. And Dungeons and Dragons has a little golden book coming to retail. This is fantastic. It's called A Long Rest for Little Monsters.
It absolutely looks adorable. I remember
This is so
I
amazing.
remember these books and they have these like gold bindings
Yeah,
on them on
yeah.
the outside. I remember at
Come
first
since the 50s.
when
So
you
you would have been like 30 at the time, I think.
I was not born in the 50s. I hate you. But I do remember these books. I don't even remember if I had them, but I remember seeing them. I have 3 younger brothers, so maybe one of us had them. Maybe I did have them. But it's so cute. And there's these 24-page books for little children, and they're like
Yeah.
five at the moment. They're $5.99 each. I bet that they were $1 each when I was young. But
So
it's
coming out end of
amazing.
January.
So
It's
look,
just so cool. I'm sorry, I should say author is Brittany Ramirez, illustrated by Shane Cluster. It is A Long Rest for Little Monsters.
that's awesome. Look for that in your bookstore. What else you got for us? You have another one?
The next one I've got is I think just a really interesting story is the finances of a game designer. So game designer Matthew Dunstan has posted a very transparent blog entry uh, on his blog on Subtrack that just says what his income as a game designer was for the year 2023, talking about royalties, how many games he's put out, what each game made, what percentages were on each game. It's short, but I always really find it fascinating when someone in the game industry has this level of transparency. In the past, certain publishers, Stonemeyer, who we talked about earlier,
Yes.
is famous for transparency on numbers. They'll talk about how many they printed, what print runs were, what each game did. But also, Steve Jackson Games is famously will put out full transparency on their games.
Yep. That's really great that he
Oh,
that he does this. By the way, it showed that he made 27% of his income from the game Echoes and 24%. So both of those together for Postmark Director Division. Is that the name of that game? Only part of it is there. I
Yeah.
don't know this game.
But he's
Has
also the designer of Next Station London, which I played over in Toronto. Fantastic puzzly game. Tiny,
4.7% of his income from that one.
yeah. Some of the lower income ones, My Shelfie is in there at almost 6%.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Um,
Those are the
the
big.
Guild of Merchant Explorers is one of my very favorite games that he's done at 6.3%.
Okay.
Um, so there is an enormous pie chart because he is such a prolific designer. But I just love seeing the comparison and where the games are and what each game does and things like that. It's nice to see transparency in this side of it.
Absolutely. It's really cool. Matthew is a really good guy. Met with him many times to look at his game designs. Um, it's interesting. Maybe I'm not sure that the all the publishers want to know. Like, basically, he's saying how many games that they're releasing as well. Sometimes that's kind of internal knowledge, but in general, it's obfuscated enough that they would probably don't have an issue with it. But I like it as you do that he's showing, hey, look at this. This is what a game designer can get, or what I've gotten on all of my games over time. So very, very cool, interesting pie chart that he created there. Now, with all the news done, let's get over to strategy and tactics. So we'll do a really short strategy and tactics. We are running a little bit long here. And I'm going to mention in playtesting a very special thing that's going to happen in the next episode. So let's go right over here to Christine McCullough, very good friend of the show. She's at Woogie's. She basically is
Hi,
asking us,
Christine.
hey, Christine, who and where do you think most gamers in the BGI audience are gaming with? Is it private groups? Is it meetups? Is it at cons? Um, Christine's always looking to expand her gaming, and she can't find a lot of people. So I'm going to ask people, if you listen to us and you're in the Austin, Texas area, to reach out to Christine because she needs more gamers to game with. WOOGIES, Woogies on BGG. You can find it there. Corey, what do you think? Is it mostly private groups? You do it through these meetups, like the ones that I basically just advertised?
I
What
think this would be a fantastic question for our listeners.
it is, it is, and I think we will put it there, but not this week because I have a better one for this week. I have a
Oh,
really good one for this week.
well, I would love to see it go to the listeners because I have no idea.
Okay.
Um, at this point, I play mostly at conventions, but I know that you and we go to a lot of conventions. We go to a lot of meetups. I think that the average person out there plays most of their games in private groups. They play
Yeah.
either with a regular get together at a store or they play with just friends who come over the house on a
Yeah.
regular basis, once a week, something like that. But I really would like to know.
I think we definitely will use this in a future play testing. Certainly mine is going to end up to be at conventions. It's not private groups because I really don't have a gaming group. I only have Paula here, and we don't game like a tremendous amount. I don't have a local game store at all. I've been to two meetups recently, but that was very, one off. It's conventions, and then I game a lot when I'm there, and of course socialize. So it is a great question, and I'm going to
Sure.
write this down into a future question to ask the audience. And W, good friend of the show as well. She's at Ann SK8R, Ann Skater. What criteria do you use to call someone an OG in this hobby? And you can read OG, she says, as original gangster, old gamer, original gamer, your choice. Yeah, I want to be called an original gangster. Yeah, that's me. I'm just an old gamer. Do you consider just how long they have been involved in the hobby, like date they joined BGG, which I always look at, or stuff they talk about playing, like anything prior to 5e D&D or Commander Magic the Gathering? Or is it more about contributions to the hobby, like having a long-running show or designing a game? How far back is OG material? 10 years? 20 years? Oh, Corey, it's also a very interesting question.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
There's
Like,
a lot of levels in there. I
yeah,
personally, I think of it just purely in terms of experience, in terms of how long have you played? So it's going to be time. It's going to be in that old gamer criteria.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to put out there that there are some people who use it as a gatekeeping term to try to say, I'm better than you because I've
Yeah.
played this game and you haven't played that game. And that just really annoys me. Uh, I I think the term is nice as a uh, sort of an homage, as
Hmm.
a compliment to say, "Oh man, you've been in this for so long. You're one of the original gamers." But well, that leads, you, Stephen, as an OG, and I'm going to use it as old goat. You have just been playing games since they were printed on rock and stone. So
I might have designed
rock, paper,
Mon
scissors,
Moncala. No, what's the oldest one? Senate. Senate is the oldest
Senate,
believed. Senet.
Moncala, back when they only
And
had two rocks and one pit. That's like Steven said, it would make this better.
maybe better we had more of these
Less
pits.
rocks.
It's great. So, I mean, and I'm sure Anne was not thinking in any
No, no, no.
derogatory
I
way.
was not
Right.
implying that at
Right.
all.
But I mean, I would say that I don't, and again, it's literally it's a very arbitrary designation. I definitely
Yeah,
consider myself OG in the hobby. I mean, I've been hobby gaming from the beginning of
yeah,
anything that resembled the hobby, right? So the 1970s, right?
yep.
Sorry, yes, I am old, playing
I've been
old
playing since
school
the 70s.
D&D, right? Yeah, right. Old school D&D, like first edition D&D, the red and the blue books, all that stuff.
Sure.
And all of those, weird Milton Bradley games. And then there were games that came out like
The 3M shelf games,
Dungeon,
the early Avalon Hill.
yeah, I was playing or at least reading them, and I had collected some. So I mean, I just think in general, I think you can say like, I'm an original gamer if you at least have experience.
Yeah.
You don't have to have been doing it for.
As far as how that qualifies for OG, that's a tough one because I think it has to do with the age of your brain as well. So 10 years back, because I am older than dirt, 10 years back still feels very new to me. 10 years back is 2013. Those are new
It's
games.
a brand new game. It really is. I mean, so that's so new. And there are a lot of gamers that started like 10 years ago. They're like, I met a guy at the meetup, this last meetup that he's been gaming for 6 months. Now he's been gaming for 6 months because his partner has been much longer gamer and
Sure.
he's just like got him into gaming. So there you go. So, um, I would say if you're engaging in some of the classic games from the 90s
Yeah.
and the early 2000s, you can say, I'm an old school gamer,
There you
even though you
go.
haven't been there for 20 years. And again, no derogatory mentions. No one's better than anybody because they know because they've played Tigris and Euphrates or they remember it when it was number one on Board Game Geek. You're not better. No one's better because they remember that or they played T&E. You have more experience. So you have things you can talk about. And hey,
Yeah.
you could bring it to the table and teach somebody something that this was noted as the greatest game in the hobby for years. And then it got replaced by a whole bunch of newer games. T&E is still in the top 100. Tigris and Euphrates or Euphrat and Tigris.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Let's take one more. Tilla Messeria, who's at TM Messeria, says, what changes would we need to see in the industry to see more games manufactured solely in the US? Are there any companies
Ooh.
you are aware of currently doing this? Yeah, that's the Pandora box. And
So many people have tried,
yeah,
and
I mean,
it comes down to the almighty dollar.
it comes down to the dollar, the cost.
It is expensive to print in the
Yeah.
US, and the companies I know who have printed in the US have been unhappy with the quality, even though they're paying more.
Yeah. We're and this is literally every product that you buy. We, as the United States, we are no longer a manufacturing country. We are a service-oriented country, and our manufacturing is done almost exclusively elsewhere. And I always point out the one huge thing, like if you need plastics, China has 75 years of plastic manufacturing plants ready to make your plastics. We have none, or very, very few. I don't know of any plastic manufacturing
No,
in the
we
US.
have a few card printing
We do.
services, but they are much more expensive
They are much more expensive.
and they can't do some of the glitz and shine and
Right,
extra stuff that they do almost without
right.
asking in China.
So here's an interesting little anecdote back from my Stronghold days. Right, I was the first company to print a major release in the United States, and that was Terraforming Mars. It was first printed at Ludofact USA as well as Ludofact Germany, and Ludofact really wanted to get this right. They had to get the plastics because there are the plastic cubes from China. They printed them there and shipped them there. They gave me a price that was relatively comparable to the price that we were also printing at the German factory. But in the end, they realized that they were basically kind of losing money on like every time they were printing because of all of the overhead of bringing the price. So the price had to go up in the US and it became impossible to continue doing that. So now the printing gets done either in Germany or in China or both. So it's a very difficult question, but it's one to think about. We just don't have the facilities to do it, and the ones that we have are too expensive to use.
And
And
the
now,
honest truth is, in the US, many people want products made in the US. But even if they are standing on the rooftop screaming about how they don't care and they want it printed in the US, when companies have done that and the price reflects that they have done that, they don't sell. People will not buy a more expensive product. It just doesn't happen.
it just doesn't happen.
And
And
it's
with
been
that,
tried over and over. Sorry.
no, that's all right. And with that lovely news for
Yeah, we
Tilla,
end on a high note.
and on a high note, let's get over to playtesting. Okay, so last week, Ignacy was here and he asked everybody a real quick question. He says, what will you remember from 2023, obviously in gaming? What were 3 events or things you remember the most in years to come? And I found a couple of really great ones that I'll just start with, unless you have something you want to start with. But I love these. The first one is again from Ann W. And thank you so much. Big fan of everything. This one is great. She says, it was January, the Podfather Cruise 2023. She set out Sagrada, which we also mentioned, designed by Daryl Andrews, to teach her
Sure.
friend Michelle. And a guy walked up and said he had never played it and asked to join. We played through the game, and then when I went to put in the BGG stats, I asked this guy, do you have a BGG username? He said, yes, Z-Man. And Anne laughed and asked, how do you spell that? Because there's a famous guy named Zev Schlesinger who's known as Z-Man too. He sat there, stared at her for a few seconds, and said, that's me. Yes, Zev was on the cruise, and she didn't know because, again, we're all just fun, friendly people. We don't, I joke about the, guest of honor, yeah, but we're all just want to be there and hanging out and having a good time with everybody. So, and that's just a great, great story. She also said in
That's fantastic.
July, she finally got to meet Ignacy at Dice Tower East, and he taught her Imperial Miners, which we've talked about a lot. Fantastic game. And then she said in September, the World Series of Board Gaming she went to as a guest. Just she didn't compete, and she said it was nothing like what I expected in an amazingly good way. I didn't compete. I had a fantastic time cheering on the Board Game Bros from Idaho. There were just 3 guys that were wearing Board Game Bros shirts. It was kind of fun. I had given them that nickname on the Podfather cruise too. They had showed up at the WSBG, and she just open game the whole time and had a great time there. So she was very excited about those things. Did you find anything that was really cool?
I was tickled by Eric Longebeck, friend of the channel.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 things he said. Remember bringing out unplayed games this summer during vacation in the cabin and playing them until we knew them. Heavy, lightweight. Had to pick them up during the summer. Just hadn't been able to take them to the table. I love that feeling when you have a whole bunch of games and you finally get together and you get
Yep.
people to play them. His second one was ran a Warhammer Fantasy role play for a friend who's soon moving south. Never got to play an RPG before. The whole group enjoyed it. So again, that just absolute dopamine high of bringing someone into the hobby and just seeing how much fun they have. But then my favorite one, I will also remember both Corey and Steven coming out of retirement, making my prediction that Ignacy will be the first of the three to really retire look more and more likely.
That's great, Eric. Thank you. Two more that I want to point out. Greg Senko, he's always commenting. He's a really great guy. Definitely the magic heist at Gen Con. If there was ever
That
a
was
case of
huge.
knuckleheads in the news, it was two guys stealing while advertising their own game on their shirts. Smile, you're on camera. And Lal Margu from Luxembourg says the new booth plan in Essen, visiting for the first time the Toy Fair in Nuremberg, and playing Sea, Salt, and Paper 100 times. I don't know that game, but it sounds like he's enjoying it if he's played it 100 times this year.
And Peter Woken, who I actually got to play with and visit with in Toronto, who's a graphic designer on Sagrada. So bringing it all full circle, this is what we do.
This is what we
Uh,
do. So
so Peter brought up the Lorcana breaking Gen Con. So this was the huge one for me, is just how we knew Lorcana would be big, but every piece of evidence said it would be big. Lorcana messed up Gamma, but then when Gen Con happened, man, that was just such a huge event.
very, very cool. So Corey, next week, the reason that I added this question here is
Uh-oh.
because, and this is sort of an announcement for everybody who's listening, and stay with us throughout the whole show. Next episode is going to be our predictions episode. So you'll find out how badly Steven and Ignacy predicted what was going to happen in 2023, because Corey wasn't with the show yet. And now the three of us will predict what we think might happen in 2024. So that's always our biggest show, our most downloaded show, it's our favorite show to do. So Corey, you'll get a chance to do that with us this time. Make sure you come prepared with 3 good questions. Remember that.
I'm gonna be busy that day.
Oh, you better not be. And that's this. And that's this. We only have a few days. I haven't done mine yet. Remember that. So the question that I'm giving to everybody here is, what are your predictions for the board game hobby or industry in 2024? Now, Corey, you can't answer that now because you're going to be creating questions, but I'm setting everybody else up to be part of the
All
episode,
right,
so to
all right.
speak. So I just wanted I thought that was just a good way of doing this. I'm actually starting the thread right now on BGG in our guild. So please go to our guild on BGG, find our playtesting thread with this question and answer it to you. So you'll be really part of next week's episode when we
Yeah.
predict what we think is going to happen in 2024. And now let's get to the final scoring. You know, my voice is getting deeper and deeper as I get older, I think. And it's getting more like, it's not sexy. It's just better like on the
It's all the
microphone.
whiskey and cigars.
Well, it could be some whiskey. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts, or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. You want to be part of this podcast? You can ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the correct guild on BGG, and also answer our question to you from the playtesting segment by going to our guild on Board Game Geek and looking for the thread with this episode's question. Check out our website, which are portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com, and play2zgames.com. We are all over social media. So interact with us, please, on Facebook. Please like our pages, which are /BoardGamesInsider, /PortalGamesUS, and /PodfatherGaming. I guess I should also put in here that, Play2Z's got one, so it's /Play2ZGames. There you go.
There you go.
You can speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven on X and Instagram at Portal Games US, at Podfather Gaming, at Dice Tower Dish. And the very active YouTube channels are Portal Games Studio, The Podfather Gaming, and Above Board TV. It's amazing. TikTok, Ignacy, he's Portal Games US. Can't wait to see you at an upcoming convention in 2024. Tantrum Con's the next one for me. Corey, you don't have one for a while, do you?
I'll probably be at Dice Tower West,
Oh, Dice
and
Tower West, of course. I'll
that's
see
coming
you
up
there.
around the corner.
That's right around the corner. That's only in like
Yeah,
6 weeks from now. So we
yeah,
got
that's
Tantrum
my
Con.
next one.
Tantrum Con for me, Dice Tower West, me and Corey. Maybe we'll set up a mini meetup or something like that, probably at the bar.
Works
Anyway,
for me.
Board Games Insider was professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine. If you want your podcast edited by Joshua, you can reach him at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. Also, that great voice you hear doing the intro, the outro, the in-between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. I have something a little special, unless you have something else.
Oh, no, you go.
Okay,
The
just a
stage
little.
is yours.
So,
Like the stage is ever not
yes.
yours, but
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, the crowdfunding, the Kickstarter for the first game from Play to Z, the date has been set, and it's 2/22 or 22/2 if you're from like England. They do it backwards, right?
February 22nd.
February 22nd of 2024. So it's only going to be a month from after this drops, a little bit more than that. Already 500 people have signed up to be notified of launch. So if you want to be notified, head over to Kickstarter and search for either Play 2Z or Ascending Empires. That's going to be the first game. It's Ascending Empires Zenith Edition. And find it, click on it, and click the notify me. You'll be the first to be notified. This game, I got to play it with Zev at the Joey Evans's church
Nice.
meeting, and I had such a good time. I hadn't played the game since before there was a Stronghold games, the original Ascending Empires. It's great. It's a 4X game. People say, "Oh, flicking." It's got a little flicking element, which you can actually take out if you really want to. There's a alternate rule, but it's 4X. You're going out, you're discovering things on planets, you're building up on planets. You got a tech tree, you got all those 4X things, but it's 4X in space in an hour. So do the math. It's a good one, guys. So check that out on Kickstarter, coming really soon. And everybody, thank you for listening. Corey, thank you for putting up with this because I know you're not feeling very good. So appreciate you being here with
No,
us.
it's fun. I felt really bad that I had to delay it a little bit.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you later, everyone.